Today, we are really digging into some source material that takes an extremely critical position on something we hear about constantly in international diplomacy.
Right, the idea of a Palestinian state.
Exactly. And this viewpoint we're looking at doesn't just call it ineffective policy, it labels it a dangerous delusion.
It is, and the context is important here. We're looking at an op-ed from August 29, 2025. It's titled Against Palestinian Statehood, a Dangerous Delusion.
Okay.
Published in USA Today. And the author is Morton A. Klein. He's the national president of the Zionist Organization of America, the ZOA.
So the core mission here is to understand this central thesis that a Palestinian state won't bring peace, but actually war and terror. That's the quote. And the claim is that this whole idea that statehood equals peace has been this delusion pushed for decades by leaders, media, even, he says, many Jewish groups.
Right. The author basically frames it as a fundamental mistake in thinking.
Yeah.
Like, world leaders have just clung to this narrative.
That the author says just isn't true. Never has been.
Exactly. A failure based on, well, what the author sees as flawed assumptions about intentions.
Okay, so let's get into the evidence he uses. How does he back this up? He seems to have one word that sums it all up for him.
Gaza. That's the absolute cornerstone of his argument.
Yeah.
He really focuses intensely on the 2005 Israeli disengagement from the Gaza Strip.
Right.
Framing it as, the big real-world test. Did Plan for Peace work?
And he calls it a historic concession, doesn't he? Made with this expectation, both inside Israel and internationally, that giving full control would stop the violence from Gaza.
Yes, and the source really emphasizes how big this concession was to underscore, the sacrifice involved.
He gets quite specific, not just moving troops.
No. Removing every single Jewish resident. He talks about entire communities uprooted.
Yeah, I remember reading that part. Families dragged from homes, soldiers crying. It's portrayed as this incredibly painful, total withdrawal.
All designed in this narrative to give peace a genuine shot.
Israel made this huge, painful sacrifice for peace. Then what?
Well, according to the op-ed, the outcome was the absolute opposite of peace. Instead of conflict ending.
Israelis got bombarded, that's the word he uses. Tens of thousands of rockets.
Rockets, terror tunnels, kidnappings, suicide bombings, even those incendiary balloons. It's presented as an immediate and sustained wave of violence following the withdrawal.
And the author connects this directly, very explicitly, to the October 7th attacks, describing those as the deadliest attack on Jews since the Holocaust.
Precisely. He draws a straight line from that 2005 painful exodus to October 7th.
So the conclusion is
that the whole idea giving the Palestinians territory would bring peace was pure fantasy. That's the quote. The argument is that the territory wasn't used to build a state, it was used to plan war.
Which leads right into his next big point, doesn't it? This idea about sovereignty.
Yeah, he challenges the theory that giving a group statehood, that legitimacy, will somehow moderate them or make them more responsible.
Right, the civilizing effect argument.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The author says, based on history, sovereignty doesn't moderate violent groups, it just empowers them, gives them more tools.
And he uses international comparisons here, pretty stark ones.
He does. He says, look at Iran's mullahs. They have a state.
North Korea's communists, Syria.
Right. These are often called rogue regimes. And he argues statehood didn't make them peaceful neighbors. It gave them legitimacy, resources.
To oppress people, spread propaganda, cause trouble globally. That's the picture painted.
And so he applies that logic directly to a potential Palestinian state. He argues it wouldn't prioritize hospitals and schools.
It would build rocket launchers and indoctrination centers. Another direct quote. The claim is the state machinery would just accelerate the destruction if the ideology is destructive.
And he points back to Gaza again. Hamas wins the election there, gets autonomy.
And immediately starts arming for war, according to the Strauss, using that self-rule for violence.
So the rhetorical question posed is powerful. If that's what self-rule looks like, what would a full state bring? An army, international recognition for what he calls a destructive regime, airports.
And he specifically mentions Iranian weapons shipments. That's the fear. Granting international status to a group he claims is committed to destroying Israel.
So yeah, in this view, there's just no room for moderation to evolve. Any territory, any autonomy, he argues, gets weaponized.
Okay, so if that's the argument about consequences, it leads to the question, why don't the Palestinians have a state already? People ask that all the time.
And according to the source, the answer is, well, incredibly simple.
They were offered one multiple times and said no.
He lists the years. 1937, 1947, then 2000, 2001, and again in 2008.
That timeline is crucial for his argument, right? It shifts the blame.
Absolutely. It aims to show that the lack of statehood isn't because Israel didn't offer enough, but because Palestinian leadership chose to reject it.
And the reason why they rejected it in this op-ed is the real kicker.
Yeah. He claims it wasn't about the specific terms, not borders, not settlements, not water,
What for?
but the fundamental condition of any deal, that a Jewish state would continue to exist peacefully next door. That, he argues, is unacceptable to them.
Wow. Okay, so that shifts everything. It's not politics or territory anymore.
Exactly. That's where he makes the huge claim. The issue is not borders. It is not settlements. It is not water or land. The issue is ideology.
Suggesting the entire Palestinian national identity, as he sees it, is built around destroying Israel, not building their own state next to it.
Which is, a fundamental reframing. It basically says this isn't a solvable territorial dispute. It's existential.
And if you accept that premise that the ideology is fixed and destructive,
Then compromise. Concessions. They become pointless. Or worse, dangerous.
which takes us to appeasement.
Precisely. He pivots right to that historical argument. Accommodating evil, he says, just makes it bolder.
Using Gaza again as the example, Israel leaves.
And Hamas builds a fortress of terror. That's the phrase.
Yeah.
So giving up land isn't security, it's a prescription for suicide.
And this view includes a pretty sharp critique of Western thinking, doesn't it?
Yes. The constant international push for two states. He argues it comes from this Western obsession with symmetry.
Like, oh, there are two sides fighting, so the answer must be two states.
Right. He counters that forcefully.
Right.
He says it's not symmetrical at all. It's not two equal sides with negotiable claims.
How does he frame it instead?
As a war of annihilation against the Jewish state. One side, Israel, wants peace, he claims, and the other side wants Israel gone.
So forcing a symmetrical two-state solution onto that asymmetrical reality is, in his view, just guaranteed to fail.
That's the argument.
Okay, so bringing this to the present day, what does this mean politically for groups that do support two states?
Well, he points to current political opposition inside Israel to back up his claims. He mentions Gideon Sa'ar, the foreign minister.
Oh, yeah, pleading with Jewish leaders back in February to oppose a Palestinian state.
Exactly. And he notes that Prime Minister Netanyahu and what he calls the clear majority of the Israeli people
Well,
also oppose it.
so he sees this internal Israeli consensus as proof that, reality on the ground, especially Gaza, has shown the two-state idea is just too dangerous now.
Right. And this leads to a really direct challenge, a call to action aimed at American Jewish organizations.
He names names, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah. AIPAC, the ADL, AJC, the big religious movements, Orthodox, Reform, Conservative, Reconstructionist, all of them.
And the demand is,
Basically, stop promoting the two-state solution, or at least end your silence on its dangers. He says continuing to push for it, given everything he's laid out, isn't just bad policy, it's a mortal danger to Israel. That's the final word on it.